Game time. Welcome to the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. I hope you guys have had a most excellent week. There's a lot going on right now, and for me, this is one of my favorite times of year. You're into the thick of it in the NFL. You're into the thick of it in NCAA. We have the NBA starting up. We just had the end of WNBA, so just a lot going on right now in sports. You have the World Series coming up. You just had NHL come back around. I mean, it's like a little bit of everything going on. Now we're going to talk about a good chunk of it. With that being said, I'm your host, Zay, the Fantasy Football Fiend, and I have my guy, your guy, BK Wins. How let the people, my guy.
Hey, y'all.
So, yeah, I saw something that I just could not wait to talk to you or the congregation about this week, and the term that came to mind, greed. We have several NBA players slash former players, current coach, currently rounded up by the feds for gambling infractions. Obviously, if everyone has their day in court, we'll see, the guilt or innocence of said persons. But I was surprised when I saw Chauncey Billups' name come across the screen saying that he's been arrested. Terry Rozier, who the NBA cleared last year of the same infractions, the FBI said, not so fast, my friend. So I don't know if the NBA might be in some hot water for tapping them, tapping them on the hand instead of clobbering them with a punishment. So I don't know what may spin off of that. And then you had the assistant coach, Damon Jones, who was on the team with LeBron James previously, and he apparently was giving out injury news that wasn't available to the general public to assist with their prop bets or betting in general, whatever the case was. And I was just like, wow, like you guys are multi-millionaires several times over, and this is the situation you put yourself in. Like it didn't stand to reason for me. And at this point, it's like especially for like Chauncey, like you've had an entire career of making money. Now you're making money as a coach. Like, what are we doing? But yeah, that one really threw me off and was not something that I thought I would be seeing come across my notification screen. But that was definitely the thing that I could not wait to see your opinion on and talk to the congregation about. But did you have an opportunity to see any of that story?
I sure did, yeah. So being honest, I'm not surprised. We for a couple reasons. One is it's one of the byproducts of gambling being in betting, sports betting specifically, being more acceptable in society publicly. People can talk about it. Broadcasters, we have shows on TV that specifically ESPN Bet, amongst others, where like betting is literally the theme of the show. So it doesn't come to surprise me that people bet on sports. It's easier because of the access to the information, players within the sports to bet on it, even though that's frowned upon and an integrity thing. And as far as the money part goes, look, while these are players or coaches now, in some cases, that have made more than their fair share of money, it's kind of like these athletes who get into these um the how do I word this? They're going to have to go back I just think that it's not surprising because the rush, right? Like we see people all the time, like the rush of the speeding. We see, or even some players who are like, I think about Josh Gordon, right? Not to name drop, but you know, friends back home in Cleveland saw what Josh Gordon was on the field. He was a superstar. At the time he was on the field, he was at worst a top 5 wide receiver. And he got himself in trouble with drugs and whatnot, and people were like, well, how can he mess up a career over something like that? Well, here's the thing, right? Like, addiction is real, and you don't know the demons people fight. So we've seen people mess up their careers over things that we can't understand ourselves at times. The analogy that I would use is this falls in line. These 3 players have made more than their fair share of money, yet they're still stooping to something that they shouldn't be involved in, especially while they're actively involved in the sport. But you never know what they're dealing with. And I also will close this by saying you're going to see more and more and more of this.
Until they throw the hammer at somebody. Somebody's going to get smacked, and it'll be like a, ooh, yeah, not doing that. But the fine and the now coaches may be different. He may be banned. I don't know. We've seen players banned, like, but everyone has the that happened to him, but it won't happen to me type of attitude as well. So I mean, yeah, you're right. It can happen to anybody, and any given day, it could be someone's last day because of something that they said that they shouldn't have. But yeah, what's going on in your world this week?
Well, I know this will be shocking to the congregation and you, but I'm actually going to be concise on this, which doesn't happen often, as we all know. But, South Carolina recently fired their offensive line coach. And quite frankly, they fired the wrong coach. The offensive line is terrible no matter what coach you have there. The talent isn't there on the O-line. You can't do it. Where the firing that needed to be made was offensive coordinator Mike Shula, who literally single-handedly has effed up this offense so bad that he's turning Lenora Sellers into a mediocre quarterback, which I didn't think was possible. And I know the line's bad, but there's so many weapons there. There's ways to scheme around that. And the guy's living on the namesake of Shula and not because he's actually accomplished anything. The guy needs to go.
I don't know that the whole coaching staff might not be going by the time it's all said and done. So yeah, agreed. But sooner or later, I think we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we don't know who the next guy is going to be. We just know that this guy won't get them to the mountaintop or over it. So I can definitely see that. But yeah, it's when you have that much talent on offense and the offense looks that bad, you kind of got to point the finger at the OC. So yeah, completely agree with you there. What we got up next?
Well, NFL last week. Curious of what direction that you want to go on this. And you know me well enough to know, and the congregation knows what I'll be speaking about. But the Patriots hammer the Titans. The Chiefs remind everyone just how great they are. The Broncos win in the game of the year, an instant classic thriller. The Colts continue their winning ways, and the Eagles and Rams both score impressive wins. what was your key takeaway, or what caught your eye last week in the NFL?
Well, everything you named was on my list of highlights, if you will. Um, I think the Patriots are for real. We see Drake May um, breaking records that most other quarterbacks never have, including Tom Brady. We see the defense coming together. They're supposed to beat the Titans, so that W doesn't really, But sometimes it's the team that you should beat that sneaks up on you. The sign of a good team, one of the first signs of a good team, is you beat the teams you're supposed to beat. So the Patriots are actually doing that this year. As far as the Chiefs are concerned, the Chiefs are exactly who they were always going to be if they had all their pieces on the chessboard. So I don't know that surprised me very much. That's exactly what I thought I was going to see when Rashee Rice came back in. Broncos, I'm not giving them props for that game. Not at all. You're supposed to have one of the best defenses in the league, and you let a couple of rookies run it up on you. And if not for their coach acting as if the game was already over, you probably would have lost this game. So yeah, I give you credit for the W because the W is a W, but I can't give you, how would I say? I give more blame to the Giants for a letdown, seeing as how they had you. I think they were like, was it like close to 20 points to zero before they finally scored, something like that. So the letdown is more so what I'm giving the credit to as far as that piece is concerned. Look, BK, I told you this a few weeks ago. I just as the season was starting, the NFL loves storylines. And one of the biggest storylines of this offseason um, was the unfortunate passing of Mr. Irsay. It's no, you can call it a coincidence, you can call it a happenstance, circumstance, whatever, but it doesn't surprise me that the Colts are doing what they're doing. It's par for the course. It's going to be one of the largest storylines that can be written the further that they go. You have several different angles of it. You have the passing away of the owner, but then you have the rebirth of Daniel Jones, and now he went from being a heel to being a hero. You have the resurgence of Jonathan Taylor. You have uh, Warren, who everybody and their mama knew should have been drafted, the first tight end drafted, is the best tight end in the NFL right now. Chicago screwed that one up, but whatever.
That's what they
Just saying,
do.
like, yeah, one away. but I feel like there are a lot of good storylines, and there are a lot of things that may be here today, going tomorrow. But overall, great NFL week, and I'm looking forward to what we have coming.
Yeah, it really was a great week. I think for the Patriots, it was a slow start. They fell behind 10-3 before they put the hammer down on the Titans. That became a no contest in the third quarter for sure. Really impressive road win for New England. Um, for Kansas City, like you said, right? They're starting to get whole. Once Mahomes gets pieces, parts, he's got some toys that came back, and with Worthy and Rice, and all of a sudden now Kelsey looks a whole lot better. Now that you have to focus on them, I don't think they run the ball well enough, so they will have to get that going eventually. But the Chiefs are loaded; they're going to be a tough out as the season progresses. Rams and Eagles, obviously they got it done. The game that I'm going to talk about, of course, is the Broncos, right? Like, yes, did the Broncos look awful for 3.5 quarters? Yes. Um, should they have ever had any business winning that game? No. Um, But I'm a positive person, and so I'm going to take away this. When you're down 19 to nothing after three quarters and you're literally lifeless and and to be honest, through three quarters, other than the one drive they got stopped inside the 5, so it should have been closer, I guess. But you could have even argued the game could have been further apart as well, based on how the Giants played. The Broncos turned it on and played complete football in the fourth quarter. And one of the things that I give them credit for is in the NFL, it's really hard, well, in any sport, but in the NFL especially, it's really hard to win. Really hard to win. And so I give the Giants for playing way above their ability for three quarters. Obviously, the Broncos were awful for three quarters, but playoff teams and the Broncos will be a playoff team. Playoff teams find a way to win. And even if, forget about like the team itself, in the NFL, teams are 1,602 and 0 when they're up 18 points or more with 8 minutes to go in the game until that game. And, we see this in basketball where teams blow big leads and you're like, what the hell just happened? Forget about the fact that I liked the Broncos and was happy that they came back. All right. That's the kind of game that should never, ever happen. And if the Giants weren't already really bad, that's the kind of game that can derail their season. Kind of like what happened to the Bears last year with the miracle at Landover, when they lost that game and didn't seem to win much after. And I laughed too. One last point of that game. I know the kicker was filling in for Graham Gano and he missed a couple extra points and the finger went to him because those 2 points ended up making the difference. Here's the thing. That's such a cop-out. You're up 19 to nothing and 26 to 8 with 7 minutes to go in the game. It's not the kicker's fault you lost. Your team shit the bed. That's who lost. Your coaching sucked. Your offense sucked. Your defense fell asleep. That's whose fault it is, not the kickers. Get out of here.
I agree with you 100%. To me, it's coaching. Like,
yes,
you stopped coaching. You thought the game was won, and you allowed the team to let up. You got over on the sideline, snickling and giggling, and you let your foot out the gas. So I mean, you got what you were supposed to get. That's why I'm at with that one. Tons of injuries are just plaguing the league right now, and it seems that as we venture into a league that's, I would say, 65-35 running QB versus traditional QB, we've seen a whole lot more QB injuries. And it tends to be to lower extremities, which is par for the course when, unlike in years past, your QB kind of stayed in the pocket and it didn't matter what leg injury they had because their legs weren't really going to affect very much. It's quite a different game now. So not only is your starter, but your backup is just as important. Right now we have Jaden Daniels, hamstring injury, Bryce Young dealing with the ankle injury. It can add up pretty quickly. You already had JJ McCarthy. He's still dealing with his injury that hadn't allowed him to play even this evening as we record. So quarterback injuries have become a thing now, more so than they were in the past. It used to just be the running backs more than anyone else that you can count on just about every week. One of them was going to go down, but now it's been the quarterbacks that just about every week somebody's going down. So how do you suggest teams deal with this inevitability in some instances? And as we speak about injuries, Carson Wentz is now walking off to the sideline holding his already injured arm I don't know how that's going to work out, but apropos, I mean, this is running rampant right now. So, how is it just par for the course? Is it something that can be reined in? Is it something you just have to be prepared for and hope you're more like the Washington Commanders of old, where you had your RG3 and your Kirk Cousins just in case? Like, what are we doing?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, right? Injuries are part of the game. It's a violent physical sport. Athletes are getting bigger, stronger, faster. It's harder to control the impact and the ferocity of the hits that players take and endure week after week, week after week for a whole season. I think some of it is quarterbacks need to do a better job of protecting themselves.
Agreed.
Um, Self-preservation is an important thing. I understand in a playoff game on 4th and 1 or 2, if you have to dive for a first down to keep your season alive or keep a drive, like in the postseason, it matters. In week 2, I don't need you to take a violent hit for 2 extra yards. You're better sliding and living for the next play. It's not worth it in week 2. So I just think you have to protect yourself, be smart. You're the franchise quarterback. You have to stay on the field. Somehow, some way, you have to do it. And you think about it, and I know that Brady tore his ACL the 1 year and missed the whole year. And I know that Manning had a neck injury, right? But in general, neither one of them were going to scare you with their legs. But they were able to play most of their career because they stood in the pocket and were able to protect themselves and got rid of the ball. And I think that while the game has changed, and I'm not complaining or have a problem with the game evolving, I do think it requires, with it evolving, you being smart enough to avoid these big hits. Because these defensive players are going to tear you apart if you get hit 10 times a game. That's not where you want to be.
And I think one of the skills that are missed sorely: throw the ball into the ground and go to the next play. Like, there's so many injuries in turnovers that are caused by this hero ball complex, where it feels like every play has to be the next big play versus you just understanding that sometimes it's okay to end in a punt instead of trying to make the hero play and ending in a turnover. So, or ending up being hurt because you held onto the ball for 10 seconds when you're supposed to have it going by 3. So, there's that too. What we got in the wonderful world of college?
So, recap of week 8. Bama rolls the Vols. They stay hot. Georgia storms back to beat the Rebels. Vandy tames the Tigers. The Fighting Irish stay hot with a win over the Trojans. And it was an awful week for the unbeatens. We went from 11 to 6. Miami, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, Memphis, and UNLV all lost their first game. I guess for me, a few questions for you. A, what did you think of these games? What was what's your reaction to these games? And what was the biggest surprise for you last week?
Um, Several good games. I didn't see Bama running over Tennessee the way they did. That was I had them winning the game. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but I didn't think it would be that easy of a win. They did kind of propel themselves to the front end of a broken SEC conference. Georgia, the fact that they had to storm back to beat the Rebels was surprising because it wasn't surprising. Georgia, without losing their coach, without losing enough talent that they should regress to where they are making games that should be easy for Georgia look a lot more difficult than they should. Right now, Georgia should be positioning themselves to be the cream of the crop in the SEC with Saban going. and kind of having that foothold, if you will, to kind of dig themselves and entrench themselves into. But it doesn't look like they want it bad enough. So this week and through this week, so far, the thing that has kind of surprised me the most is how dominant the SEC doesn't look. Um, they have several teams that are in the top whatever rankings, cool. But what I mean by this is I would normally be able to say, hey, you give me the top 2 or 3 SEC teams, and I'm going to tell you matter of factly that I don't think most teams in other conference are going to beat them on most days. That's not how I feel now. So that's really the biggest surprise, if you will. Now, as far as no, I mean that's my biggest surprise, and I kind of went over the different games and everything. So I guess I want to know from you, like, what are you most surprised about, whether it be this week or through this week, whatever the case may be, and what games kind of stood out to you?
So I think the game that surprised me the most was undefeated Memphis losing to UAB. The Blazers just fired Trent Dilfer. And the next week, like they were winless in the conference play, hosting an undefeated team, and had a huge showdown this week, the next week, playing again, which is this week, playing South Florida at home. So, it's a potential trap game, look ahead game. They're very much ready for the Bulls, but they played terrible against UAB, and a team that just fired their coach. Like, they played inspired football. It was kind of like UCLA's turned it around now that they fired Deshaun Foster, right? They're playing a lot better football. And the talent hasn't changed, but the players are playing better. And so I say that to say that I was really surprised because Memphis, most people don't talk about them, and they're not obviously any kind of national title threat or anything, but they were a group of 5 potential playoff team. And to lose that game is just a killer. And I wonder, if they lost, now that they lost this game and their quarterback's hurt, do they lose that game twice? Because they're going to have a hard time beating the Bulls at home this week. We'll talk about more of that later. But I think the one thing where I feel vindicated, we talked about pretenders, contenders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, Miami they're like the gift that keeps on giving, right? The Canes just can't stay out of their way. They were a 13-point home favorite over Louisville. Louisville had a great game plan. I kept saying I just needed Carson Beck to face some kind of competent defense, right? Some competent defense. And
What do you have,
Louisville's not even
5 interceptions?
and Louisville's not even that great on defense. And he still threw 4 picks that should have been 5 or 6. Actually threw what? 5. He threw 5, right? The 5th one was the game sealer. But their defense isn't very good. Carson Beck is the Carson Beck that I think is the Beck that we've known, which is the old Georgia Beck, is why they didn't want him back. The truth is he's not that great. When he has to throw the ball in tighter windows, he falls apart and makes mistakes. And the coaching doesn't help. Cristobal does what he does, which is blow games they should win. I just think that game showed what you and I have been saying about not only the ACC, but particularly Miami. We both called them pretenders, and exhibit A of why we said that, right? It's exactly why we said that. And they're probably going to lose again. UNLV, well, they lost, and they got crushed by Boise. The Blue Turf Broncos crushed them. UNLV's been playing with fire the whole season. They barely pulled out a couple of MAC games that they had to pull out at the end. They struggled to beat Air Force in a track meet where each team almost scored 50 while UNLV did, like 51-48. Like, come on. Against Air Force? So, Boise just blew them out. That was going to happen. But surprised Memphis lost. Surprised that more than half the 11 teams lost as well.
Yeah.
That's a big week when you lose five. Well, you lose 5 of the 11. That's a big week. So
Agreed.
that's all I got.
So let's have a little bit of fun with the right on time power rankings, if you will. Not too early, which we hate. Not too late, which does no good for anybody. But we'll label this the right on time power ranking.
I love it.
So I guess let's start with the. You want to start NFL or you want to start college?
I'll let you pick.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's start out with the NFL. For me, I think a lot of our teams are going to make the same list between the two of us, but I think how we see the how we see things kind of hashing out maybe slightly different, maybe. But I'll start out with the AFC.
All right.
Kansas City has not looked the best, but they found ways to win, and now they have all of their key cogs back. So I feel like they're going to keep rolling. Um, the Colts are actually number 2 for me in the AFC. Why? Because they should possibly be undefeated right now, and their offense is on a historic pace. Like the amount of punts that they've had to make put them on pace for one of the lowest ever um, in the NFL. So anytime your offense is one of the on the list of all time greats, you kind of gotta put that out there. Um, I would also then put the Chargers. Um, all Justin Herbert needed was a good coach. He got the quarterback whisperer, and he's been unleashed. Harbaugh is also normally able to get a little bit more out of other groups on the field than their collective talent should be able to produce. So I think as a team, they're flying high. Right after them, I have the Patriots. Same type makeup, if you will. What a difference a coach makes. What a difference having a quarterback that has a offensive scheme that actually fits their talent makes. So the Chargers and Patriots, I see kind of as two peas in the same pod. 9 times out of 10, it'll be injury that dictates who kind of rises to the top as far as that piece is concerned. And then I have the Broncos and the Bills. Broncos, they have everything on the team to be successful. It's just a matter of whether or not it's going to happen. Here's the other thing that the Broncos have going against them: karma. And it's not even because of the team, it's because of the coach. He's a butthead and he doesn't deserve to have good things. So therefore, it's unlikely that he will. So that's the Broncos' biggest issue. And then the Bills, because the Bills are going to build it up. They're never going to be bad enough to not be in the scheme of things, and unfortunately, they won't be good enough to be the cream of the crop. But they kind of round it out for me for the AFC. Go ahead and give me your AFC list, if you will, list and
Sure.
logic.
So for number 6, I have the Chargers. Harbaugh, Herbert, the H&H Express as a solid combination. The only problem for them is they play in a tough division where they're the third best team. So that makes it tough for them. Number 5, I have the Colts. I think the Colts are a great story. Daniel Jones has been really good. Jonathan Taylor's been really good at running back. I do think they're doing it with a little bit of smoke and mirrors. I think that ultimately this magic ride will soon come to an end when they start playing tougher competition. Um,
Mm,
now it does help that they play in an awful division. So, but they're going to have some challenges. It's not a question of if, but when. The Bills, I have number 5 or 4, excuse me. The Bills are number 4. Um, I don't like McDermott. I've made that very clear. But Josh Allen is really good, and that team will find a way to win a lot of games in spite of McDermott. They have continuously anyway. Um, Number 3, I have your Patriots because, to your point, they have a coach and a quarterback. Their defense is good. They should have only had one loss. They pissed away a game against the Steelers where they had a gazillion turnovers, including 2 inside the 5. They
Right.
totally dominated the Steelers.
And one of them was on the half-yard line. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, so that was awful. Number 2, I have the Broncos. Little concerned about them because they had to come back at Philly, and they had the historic, epic comeback against the Giants. But people forget the Broncos had the Colts beat, and the refs screwed them with some BS call that didn't even exist. Well, the call exists. They just misapplied the rule. There was no penalty on the play, and it cost the Broncos the game. So in reality, Denver should be 6-1, and the Colts should be 5-2. The refs blew that, and that was inexcusable. Which is why I'm saying they're playing with smoke and mirrors because, again, that's already 2 losses. And the Chiefs, you outlined them perfectly. They did they do what they do. They kind of plod through the season, whether it's 1-score games or overcome injuries or maybe mess around and not play their best. And then they get healthy and all of a sudden, look out, here they are again. With Mahomes, Reed, Rice, and Worthy and that pass rush, they're going to be just fine. Kansas City is the best team in the AFC.
NFC. This one for me was a little bit more difficult. Actually, a lot more difficult because
Me too.
things are a little bit more subjective, and it's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm not. Um, the number 1 team for me, Tampa Bay, because they figure out a way to win no matter who's not. As long as Baker Mayfield is the quarterback, they have a chance to win. Doesn't matter which wide receivers hurt. Doesn't matter, which offensive lineman or defensive player, whatever, which wide receivers. Doesn't matter. As long as the quarterback and again coach combination comes to play, they've been able to figure it out. Another coach quarterback combination that's coming to play, but they have all sorts of talent. And this year they happen to be healthy. Detroit is number 2 for me. This is a Detroit team that'll be a hard out for anyone that they end up going up against in the playoffs. Like, barring injury, of course. Again, injuries can come out of anywhere at any time, but whatever style you suck against on defense, they can play that style. If they need to punch you in the mouth and run the ball down your throat, they can do that. If they need to air the ball out and spread the ball out, they can do that. Like whatever you're bad at, they can plan to attack that, where most teams just have to go with their strength and hope that you can't stop it on that day. So that's why I have them up next. Then we have the Rams. The Rams just they keep on trucking. The Rams they're on a razor's edge though, because everybody on that team tends to get hurt. Stafford is one hit away from a broken back. Puka's already out dealing with an ankle, and he tends to miss several games every year. Devonta Adams is an elder statesman at this point. He's had his share of injuries. So I just if no key cogs get hurt, they could have another special year. But I just don't see everyone remaining healthy, and I feel like they kind of need everyone in order to function the way they are right now. The Eagles, who are one of the best teams that are talked about the worst. When they only had one loss, people were acting like the sky was falling and like they had just completely fallen off. They were able to show you this weekend what that offense is capable of doing when things are running right. And they tend to get it right more than they get it wrong. So I think they'll be fine. San Francisco, I think they're a lesser version of what we're seeing in Tampa Bay, where regardless of who's hurt, they have their game plan. They're going to run their game plan and they're going to make it shake. The biggest difference here is it wasn't the starting quarterback that was able to keep things afloat. It was the backup quarterback. So if you guys remember back in yesteryear, San Francisco was supposed to draft Mac Jones, but they fell in love. In the Underwear Olympics with Trey Lance, and they moved to heaven and earth to go get him. And then serendipity worked its way out where Mac Jones still ended up with Shanahan. And we can now see what Mac Jones might have been if he never had to go through what he went through with the Patriots and the Jaguars. Because in this system, he's manufacturing wins. And he'd be that much more entrenched, and the system will be more so built around him. So that's another um, thing with San Fran. They tend to be able to operate no matter who's out there. And then Green Bay, um, and that's going to be again injuries. Are you going to be healthy? Are you going to be injured? If you're healthy, you already had a really good offense, and now you have one of the best defensive players, Michael Parsons, coming on over there. So if everyone can remain healthy, they're going to be a team that no one wants to see in the playoffs. So that's where I am as far as the NFC is concerned. What say you, kind sir?
Well, honestly, Zay, like I'm in the same boat in you in this. Like I really struggled with ranking these teams because I really feel like it's fluid and you could literally inverse the order pretty much. So, but I have the Rams number one. While they are injury prone, when healthy, which they are, other than the Nakua part, they're really good. They were hammering the Eagles on the road for 3 quarters. They
Yeah.
destroyed the Jags, but I have them one. Eagles, I have number two. Lions, I have number three. The Packers, I have four. The Bucks, I have five, and the Niners, I have six. You could make the case for the Lions, the Bucks, and the Niners to all be higher up on the list than they are. Um, it's just really close, and these teams, especially the Rams and the Niners, are so injury prone that it's really hard to project how long they'll stay. I won't say whole, but will even stay upright enough to maintain where they could be or should be given their talent of their roster. It's just really hard, and that's what makes the NFC so exciting is it's literally a lot of teams in the race.
Could not agree more. Let's move on over to college. Now, this one I'll run through kind of quickly because for me, I'm still not quite at the point where I know for sure that I know what I'm seeing. Because unlike with the pros, everyone doesn't play the same level of competition. So sometimes you can have a little bit of fool's gold where you thought you had something solid. Um, but let's break this thing up. Why don't you go ahead and start us out with the ACC?
Sure. So in the ACC, in most of these, I ranked the top, 4 or 5 teams. So I have Georgia Tech number one.
Mhm.
They're the lone undefeated team left in the ACC. Louisville number two. I have SMU number three. I have the Canes number four, and I have Virginia number five. Those would be my top five in the ACC. How do you see it?
Pretty similarly. And here's the thing, though, with me. I know what we just saw from Louisville, and I know Georgia Tech is undefeated, but I just don't feel good about them. Like I just I know what I have always seen from them, and I don't believe that by the end of the year we won't see more of what we normally see from them. But with that being said, I have them as 2 and 3. I do still have Miami as the best team in the ACC. And again, I know they just lost. I get it. But I feel like if that game was played 10 times, they'd probably win 7. So I just, the ACC is one of those conferences where I don't really feel all that great about anybody, to be honest with you. Um, I'll start us out in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is probably one of the easier conferences, in my humble opinion, to rank. Maybe that's because I pay a whole lot more attention to the Big Ten than like say the Big 12. ACC I pay enough attention to, but Big Ten and SEC, which is what most um, college fans are doing right now, unless your team happens to be in another conference. But Big Ten, Ohio State, Indy, Oregon, USC, and then the school up north that starts with the M. Yeah, so that's my breakdown of the Big Ten, and just, of course, um, it's no wonder why Ohio State will be number one. Honestly, it should be no wonder why Indy's number two. Um, it just breaks down really easily for me. Michigan and USC are the two that are a little bit less. I would say they make it a little bit easier to say it will be a toss up if they played against most other schools. Those first three schools, I feel like you can put them up against the best team in any other conference. In most days, if we're going to, how many times out of 10, they're going to be the team that wins 7. The other team's going to be the one that wins 3. So that's where I kind of am.
Yeah, no, I have the same exact order. The Buckeyes number 1, Indiana number 2, the Ducks number 3, USC number 4, and Michigan number 5. I will say that I am very intrigued come Thanksgiving weekend when the Bucks travel to Ann Arbor, because Michigan's going to be 9-2 when they play the Buckeyes. You look at their next 4 games, they're going to be heavily favored in all of those games. They're going to win out and be 9-2. A home game to ruin an undefeated season and make it 5 in a row. I will be very curious to see how Coach Day manages that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel less threatened this year than in most years. In the near or in the recent or distant past, because I don't feel like I'm seeing the same caliber of team on the field. Like, it's a difference when it's 6-1 and half a dozen in the other, and it boils down to coaching and who was able to kind of turn on the gas faster versus who played it closer to the vest. I don't believe that they have the talent, and we don't have the coordinators that would mess it up enough to allow them to shine when we go up against them this go around. I just it's a different animal. I really do feel that way, and not just because I'm an Ohio State fan. And obviously, the pundits feel the same way, or they would kind of have they ranked a little bit differently. But rivalry games are always a different beast, so we'll see what happens there. SEC, um, Bama, Georgia, A&M, Vandy.
Yeah, for me, I have Bama, Georgia, A&M, and Ole Miss.
Okay.
But I'm good with Vandy there. That was kind of the tough one. I think the first 3 are pretty straightforward. I know A&M is the only undefeated of those 3. But other than winning at Notre Dame, they don't really have a quality win. And that does matter. Like, we'll see how they play against LSU this week in Baton Rouge. But that's my order there. What do you got in the Big 12 wrapping up our rankings?
Big 12 is another conference akin to the ACC where what you see might not be what you get. So, but I'm going to go BYU since he had a great weekend. Um, I'm going to go Texas Tech, and then I'm going to go Arizona State. But honestly, the last three that I mentioned can all be interchangeable depending on how you want to defend what it is you have seen thus far.
Yeah, for me, I do think it's a lot like the ACC. I know that I moved Miami to 4. I do think Miami is the most talented team in the ACC. I just don't trust them to play that way. Texas Tech in the Big 12, I've watched all these teams. Texas Tech is the most talented team in the Big 12. They had to play a backup quarterback on the road at Arizona State. They came storming back in the fourth quarter only to blow it at the end. So because of the head-to-head, I did put Arizona State ahead. But I have BYU, Cincy, Arizona State, and Texas Tech. But again, from a talent standpoint, Texas Tech is the best team. But they got to play that way. Like Miami, they're the best team. They just don't play that way.
Agreed. Agreed. And as the season progresses and as we see more of a pattern one way or the other, things are subject to change for sure every weekend. Um, what a difference a weekend makes as far as rankings, especially when we're talking about college. Pro is a little bit different because you can lay an egg one week and then we can forget about it the following week because it really isn't based on the eye contest or the eye test in the pros. With college, a lot of their ranking is literally based on what you see and feel when they're on the field. So we'll kind of have a bit of this discussion going forward as the weeks progress. But what are you looking forward to the most in college this weekend as far as the matchups are concerned? Is there a particular matchup that you're keeping your eye on?
Well, you see my smirk, Zay, because you talked about the SEC. And it's interesting that the 3 marquee games this weekend are all in the SEC. Now, not that I disagree with what you said. I don't disagree with what you said, to be clear. But it is ironic that the 3 marquee games are all in the SEC. So the games I'm looking forward to, A&M at LSU. A&M has that shiny undefeated record. Can they win a road game at Baton Rouge? Ole Miss at Oklahoma, right? Ole Miss blew that fourth quarter lead against Georgia. Now they go back on the road again against Oklahoma. Do they let that game beat them twice? Can they play on the road and win this game? Ole Miss has more talent than Oklahoma. Mateer isn't quite right after his hand surgery. He's still battling through that. We'll see. We'll see how that game goes. And last but not least, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Missouri and Vandy. Because
who you got in that game?
Well, in all of these games, you'll hear about them in a little bit.
Okay.
Very soon, buddy, you'll hear about him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. I have a feeling that Vandy will have the opposite of what we tend to see from teams where they lose 2 weeks because of one loss. I think they're going to monkey stump Mizzou and take their pain out on them. We'll know very shortly whether or not I'm right or wrong because BK's bets are either going to agree or disagree, and we never go against the I would say the expertness and genius of BK wins best bets. But yeah, That's what my thought is. But there is another very important event that is about to pop off on tomorrow, and that is the World Series is set. The LA Dodgers are going up against the Toronto Blue Jays. I have one thing to say, and this should be on your best bet. There's no way that the Blue Jays can win because Drake is betting on them. And that's all I got for you.
Well, to help bolster your thing, I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm actually going to give one of my best bets on this topic. So before the playoffs started, we broke it down, and I mentioned that the final four I had was the Dodgers versus the Brewers, and I had the Yankees versus the Mariners. Three of those four happened. Of course, I had the Yankees losing to the Dodgers in the World Series. Of course, the Yankees had other ideas. But this is the Dodgers are the best team. They're rested.
Agreed.
They have the best starters. They have the better starting pitching. They have the better offense. They have the better
Got the best
bullpen.
player in the game.
Right. Like this should be a very short series. The Dodgers will go back to back. They'll be the first team to do it since the Yankees. The Dodgers will win the World Series. That is our baseball's best bet.
Well, we'll save the rest of the best bets for that section, and we will go ahead and venture into our top 5 all time of something. And today, top 5 things that make you cringe when people say them. Number 5 for me, and this is more of a pet peeve. It's just a grammar thing, but let me explain to you really quickly why the word irregardless isn't a word. Okay, regardless of what you think, when you use the word irregardless, you make it seem as if you aren't quite as smart as you're trying to make yourself seem. Because you see how I just used the word regardless because
Yes.
it didn't need the prefix. That's why irregardless isn't actually a word. It's adding a prefix where it isn't necessary. That doesn't make you better with grammar. That makes you worse. Regardless, if you agree with me or not. You're number 5.
I like it. Mine, I don't like this word. Moist.
Okay. BK, I don't understand. You're not the only one that I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if it's my wife or maybe it could be my mom, my sister. It's somebody. One of the women very close to me also hates that word, and I never understood why, because it's like it's it's just I get it and I don't, but the fact that the age range, gender, nor race kept either party from hating that word, and that word is so arbitrary, like it's so I don't know. I just found that interesting. That okay. Not going to get off on too much of a tangent, but yeah, that was that's interesting for sure. Okay. This is another kind of pet peeve, not really grammar, but just think about what you're saying as you're saying it. Because I couldn't care less, again, if you agree with me. Why? Because that is the proper way of saying that phrase, not I could care less. Because if you could care less, then maybe you should care less. The term you're looking for in that phrase is I could not care less, indicating that you don't care at all. BK, you're number 4.
I love it. It makes me cringe when people say something like, with all due respect.
Oh, because you're about to get disrespected for sure.
Right. Yes. Yes. 1000%. What's your number 3?
Number 3. It couldn't be me. It could. And if you play your cards wrong, it will. So don't turn your nose up at anyone, regardless of their situation, because if not for grace and mercy, where would any of us be? So just saying. You're number 3.
My number 3 is happiness is a choice. People say that all the time. And while in theory that's true, there's things, lifes, things happen, and there's things that you never can see coming nor can anticipate. And so sometimes it's not your choice that takes away your happiness. So number 3, happiness is a choice.
I 100% agree with you, BK, and I'll give you a thought to that.
Okay, hit me.
Happiness, more so than a choice, is an emotion. And what do we know about emotions? Emotions are fleeting. Now, what you shouldn't let anyone steal, no matter what, is your joy. Two completely different things. An emotion versus a mindset. If you allow outside forces to change your mindset, that says more about you than the circumstance. Just about anything can play with our emotions. So I 100% agree with you. Happiness is an emotion that can be changed almost immediately. And in some cases, we do have a choice about it, but sometimes we don't. So, but yeah, number 2 for me, this is one that I'm gonna be honest with you, BK. I don't even know why it makes me cringe, but it's probably because there isn't really truly a concrete definition for what it means. So when I hear this generation use the phrase 6'7", it makes me cringe because it's a term that means everything and means nothing. So what do you mean? And I don't like that. I need definition to what is being spoken so I know how to respond. So yeah, that's my number 2. 6'7".
I like it. I like it. My number 2 is kind of along the line with my number 4. I don't mean to offend you, but because you know damn well when that's said, they're about to offend you. There's no way around that. That's my number 2.
My number 1, have whatever personal thoughts, direction, reasoning, logic, whatever that you want. No guff for me. But when someone uses God's name in vain, it makes my skin crawl. That's just, again, me. So for me, number 1 on my list, using the Lord's name in vain makes my skin crawl, because there are a billion other words and terms you could have used there, and you chose to go a completely different direction. So yeah, that's number 1 for me. What you got, BK?
My number 1 is I told you so.
I feel somewhat attacked. But it's good to know how you feel about it. they made number one on your list. I'll be mindful going forward how you feel about that phrase.
We all have a way of delivering messages. There's
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, with that being said, BK, we now will get a little bit more serious, and we're going to end the show with putting money in people's pockets. Those of you that stayed around to the end, you get rewarded with the golden nugget. BK, what are this week's best bets?
well, Zay, it's funny because I don't know how often you've been still following and taking advantage of my best bets, but
Well, I have actually done pretty well this year so far. And I've even gone as far as reaching out to verify that my best bet would make BK's, if not best bet list, good bet list. So yeah, a little bit.
I love it. So for me, this week's best bets, we gave you the Dodgers one. I think that's pretty straightforward. Give me just 1 second here.
Yeah, we had a little Dodgers, and then there was a little bit of a tease that we were going to see a little bit of SEC a little bit later. So I didn't forget that piece of it.
I
Looking forward to
appreciate
seeing if
you.
we were on the same page.
You
See,
did
I paid
well.
attention. See, I listened.
I'm very proud of you for this. But so in college, so the straight bets.
Mhm.
A&M on the road at LSU. LSU to me is just overrated. Just overrated.
Agreed.
They haven't really played well most of the year. Their defense is really good. Their offense is just as bad as their defense is good. A&M is going to run the ball. They're more physical at the line of scrimmage. I trust their quarterback more. And Brian Kelly's in trouble at LSU. So I
Jeez.
like A&M and undefeated Elko. Give me the Aggies on the road. I like South Florida, the Bulls, um, to beat Memphis on the road. Memphis's quarterback got banged up at the end of the UAB game. It doesn't look like he's going to play. Even if he does, he's not 100%. The Bulls are a better team than Memphis, and they're healthier. Give me the Bulls. I also like Vandy money line at home over Missouri. Vandy's hot, and Pavi is going to find a way to get it done again. Give me Vandy at home, even though nobody shows up to those games. The Doors are going to beat the Tigers in Nashville. And then I like Cincinnati at home. They're going to beat Baylor. The Bearcats have been quietly really good. I like in the Big 12. I like the Bearcats to do it again. Those are the straight bets. In the NFL, I like the Buccaneers to win in a straight bet. And here are the teasers. We'll start with the NFL. Your Patriots -1.5. The Eagles -1.5. The Bills -1.5. The Chiefs -6. And the Niners +9 on the road. Those are the teaser parts in the NFL. In college, we have a handful as well. Ole Miss +11 in Norman against the Sooners. Virginia -4.5 in the teaser at Chapel Hill against Belichick. I don't think there's any way that Carolina beats Virginia. I like with the teaser, I like South Florida money line, BYU +9 at Iowa State. Give me Bama -5.5 at Carolina, and give me Tennessee -2. Those are this week's best bets. Fade them, follow them. But in either case, I hope that we all enjoy the games and that the games are profitable for everybody.
And that just about wraps it up for this week. I hope you have enjoyed the show as much as we have enjoyed delivering it to you. But above all else, remember, always tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
We out.
Later, y'all.